Welcome back, everybody. So today I want to cover a topic that hasn't really been talked about on this channel that much, and that's putting together your dissertation. Now, I think that when you put together your dissertation, there's really two different ways of doing it. There's a okay way, and then there's a really good way of doing it. So today we're going to cover both of those. If you could think of a different way that you could put together your dissertation, leave them in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear what other ways people have put together their dissertations. So for this, let's just assume that you are your typical graduate student. You've worked on maybe 3 projects or 2 projects, and each of them is going to be like its own standalone paper. They all kind of have some loose thread that kind of ties them together, and you need to put them together to write your dissertation. So what is the least efficient way of doing that? Well, the least efficient way of doing that is to kind of try to tie them all together into one story. So you would have a really big introduction, you would write, a method section for all the different experiments that were done, you would try to put all your results together, you'd have one big discussion, and then, maybe some future directions that, you think your project should take, and then, your acknowledgments, everything like that. I think that's the maybe least efficient way of putting together your dissertation. And I actually see a lot of people do that, and it becomes a lot of extra work because you really need to take steps to write every single piece of your dissertation in that way, okay? So what do I think is the more efficient way of doing this? The way that I think is much more efficient is what's called the chapter method, okay? So what is the chapter method? So let's go back to our original scenario of you have 2 projects that you worked on and each one is a paper, okay? So you have project 1, project 2, and then maybe you have some additional things that are project 3 that, wouldn't necessarily get into your dissertation. What I think is the best way to do your dissertation is the way that I did it. And you're gonna need to talk to your PI and make sure that they're okay with it and make sure that your committee's okay with it. But my PI and my committee were okay with doing it this way. Essentially what I did was I took my paper from project 1 and I took my paper from project 2 and I just put them right into my dissertation. So I had an overall introduction that I wrote, that was about 20-ish pages. And then I had an overall conclusion section that kind of tied everything together that was about 10 or 15 pages. And then in between I had chapter, 1, which was basically my first paper, my first project. And then chapter 2, which was my second paper, my second project. And the reason that this is better is that your university will have a way that you can, without breaking any kind of copyright, just basically copy and paste your paper into your dissertation. And this makes it so much easier because then you don't have to do all of that writing. So for me, I had to do writing like the table of contents, and I had to shift the order that the graphs were in because they had to be at the end of the dissertation, so I had to move that around. But in general, I was just copy pasting the papers that I had already published, which made it a lot easier. It saved so many hours of work doing it this way. The other really good reason to do it this way is that one of the things that is always a challenge as you get further into your graduate school work is convincing your committee that you have enough data for a dissertation. They're always going to want this experiment or that experiment. There's always something different that they're going to want. But if you have 2 or 3 papers that you've published, you kind of can work around that obstacle because then each chapter is just a published paper, and they're not necessarily going to be asking for more in this one or that one because you've already gone through the peer review process, and so you have a complete story in the eyes of academics that have published. So I think this is definitely the much better approach. Now this is a much shorter video, but I think it's something that I kind of wanted to get out there because I think a lot of times I haven't on this channel necessarily covered the dissertation as a whole. And if you really want, leave a comment below and let me know. We could actually spend a good amount of time going over, the actual defense of the dissertation, which I think could be its own standalone video. And another video that I think we should make is one about qualifying exams. So let me know if that's something that you guys want to see. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.